300 warriors held a mountain pass against 1 million. Sounds like an epic movie scene, doesn't it? Well, it absolutely is a cool scene. But the numbers are a bit off, the helmets are all wrong. And let's be honest, the Spartans weren't exactly fighting for your freedom. They were actually buying time for a slave state, one that terrified its own neighbors far more than Persia ever did. So, stay with me for the next 15 minutes. I promise to trade every Hollywood myth for the stranger, colder truth. How an entire society turned its children into living weapons. Why its women were arguably the freest in all of Greece. And how a culture built on absolute fear still managed to leave an indelible mark on the world. You might just rethink everything you thought you knew. Section 1. The machine, not the myth. Sparta was never just a city. It was a meticulously engineered military operating system. Think of it as ancient Greece's ultimate boot camp, but for an entire civilization. Every single law, every song sung, every meal eaten, and even bedroom rules were all designed with one singular output in mind: the perfect heavy infantryman. Citizens proudly called themselves homoioi, the similars, because difference, any deviation from the norm, was seen as a weakness in the line. If you're picturing bronzed, individual heroes, you need to hit the mental erase button. Spartans were interchangeable parts in a devastating shield wall, and they were fiercely proud of that anonymity. Their strength came from absolute uniformity, not individual glory. Section 2. Birth, the first cut. The moment a new Spartan boy entered the world, he wasn't brought to his parents for cuddles and cooing. Oh no, he was immediately presented to a council of elders. This wasn't a welcoming committee, it was an inspection. If a baby looked weak, perhaps sickly hips, an irregular pulse, or any perceived imperfection, he was deemed unfit. And then, he was left on Mount Taygetus. Hollywood often depicts this as being dramatically thrown off a cliff, but archaeology suggests a slower, perhaps even more chilling fate, exposed to die gradually. Either way, the state, not the family, made the ultimate decision about survival, often before a mother even had a chance to name her son. Girls, however, stayed. They were vital. They would birth the next generation of soldiers and needed strong, healthy bodies to do it. At 7, boys were taken from home for good. There were no tearful goodbye hugs. Instead, mothers famously whispered one chilling order: "Come back with your shield," or "on it." It was a stark reminder of their singular purpose. Section 3. The Agoge, 7 to 20. Can you even imagine a boarding school run by sadists who graded you primarily on your ability to tolerate starvation? That was the Agoge. Boys marched barefoot year-round, wore only one rough cloak, and slept on beds made of reeds they had to yank with their own bloodied fingers from the riverbanks. They were deliberately underfed, then explicitly told to steal their supper. If you got caught, you weren't flogged for theft. You were flogged for your sheer clumsiness. The entire point was tactical hunger, to learn stealth, to map guard shifts, to calculate risk with precision. At 12, they received a wooden staff and a single dagger. They were then expected to range the countryside at night, spying on the helots, the state-owned slaves, and, if necessary, quietly slit a throat. This wasn't just brutality, it was proof they could operate effectively behind enemy lines. And then there was the annual festival day, the Cryptia. Magistrates would formally declare war on their own slaves, the helots. Teenagers, armed with knives and official permission, would slip out into the night to kill any helot who even looked restless. This state-sponsored terror was a cold, calculated strategy to keep the massive labor force from ever remembering that they outnumbered the citizens by a staggering 7 to 1. It was a constant, brutal assertion of dominance. Section 4. Becoming hoplite. So, you turn 18 and think the agony is over? Not quite. Now comes the phalanx crash course, the crucible of true Spartan soldiery. Spartans fought in formations 8 men deep, their shields interlocked like an impenetrable wall, spears bristling forward like porcupine quills. The real trick here wasn't brute strength. It was the unwavering discipline of staying perfectly in step while the man behind you pushed relentlessly. The man ahead bled onto your sandals, and enemy arrows literally blotted out the sun. Trainees drilled to music, not for entertainment, but because rhythm was absolutely essential to maintaining cohesion and winning battles. A Spartan who broke rank, even to chase a fleeing enemy, could be fined upon his return. Discipline, you see, beat glory every single time. At 20, if you somehow survived this brutal gauntlet, you joined a sedition, a 15-man mess hall. You'd eat there every night for the rest of your active military life. On the menu? Black bean soup, some pork if the hunt had gone well, and a side of iron. And I mean that literally. They'd soak iron bars in vinegar until the metal softened enough to chew, a grim reminder that even your teeth were considered weapons. Section 5. The classes nobody mentions. The Spartiates, the full citizens, made up perhaps only 1/10 of the total population. Below them were the perioikoi, free non-citizens who handled all the trade, forged the weapons, and fought as light infantry when necessary. They were essential to Sparta's economy but lacked political rights. At the very bottom were the helots, state-owned farmers, largely descended from the conquered Messenians. These people tilled the vast estates that fed the citizens, freeing the Spartiates to train full-time. The fear of a helot uprising was constant, a dark shadow over Spartan life. Once a year, the ephors, the most powerful magistrates, would declare war on the helots again. This wasn't a real campaign. It was a chilling legal loophole, keeping the option of murder perpetually fresh and legal for any Spartan citizen. Interestingly, Spartans never locked their doors. They had nothing worth stealing. Their currency was intentionally useless outside Laconia. Heavy iron bars too cumbersome to hide, designed to prevent the accumulation of private wealth. Equality among citizens, they believed, absolutely required poverty. Wealth, they understood, would only breed weakness and individualism. Section 6. Women of Sparta. While Athenian wives were largely confined to back rooms, Spartan girls were out exercising, running, wrestling, and even hurling javelins in short tunics that absolutely shocked visiting foreigners. The state wanted strong mothers, plain and simple. Muscle was considered dowry enough. Spartan women had a remarkable degree of freedom and influence for their time. They could own land, manage estates, and even speak in public. They were legendary for their stoicism, often taunting their sons heading to war with that familiar, brutal command: "Bring back your shield, or be carried home dead on it." That, my friends, was a mother's love, Spartan style. The marriage ritual itself was equally strange. The groom would carry his bride off, cut her hair short, dress her in men's clothes, and then leave her alone in the dark. The symbolism was clear. Individual desire fades. Duty to the state remains paramount. Husbands would visit their wives in secret for years, sneaking out of the barracks. This bizarre arrangement kept passion on a tight leash and ensured both bodies were always ready for drill at dawn. Section 7. The battles that built the legend. Thermopylae in 480 BC is the battle everyone knows. 300 Spartans, alongside their allies, famously bottling up Xerxes' massive Persian army in that narrow mountain pass. They rotated frontline fighters every few hours, keeping their spears fresh, their phalanx unbroken. When a traitor showed the Persians a goat path around their position, King Leonidas, with an almost unbelievable resolve, dismissed the allies and stayed with his 300 volunteers as a rearguard. It was, without a doubt, suicide. But it was a calculated suicide, an invoice paid in blood. By 2 crucial days, cost one king. The very next year, at Plataea, 10,000 Spartan heavy infantry absolutely smashed the Persian elite immortals, proving Thermopylae wasn't a fluke but a testament to their unparalleled training. Later, during the long and brutal Peloponnesian War, Sparta ultimately beat Athens, not through naval brilliance, which was Athens' strength, but through sheer, unyielding tenacity. These were farm boys, forged into warriors, who simply never gave up, even when financed by a touch of ironic Persian gold. Victory, however, came at a steep price. The Spartan population kept shrinking, a slow bleed caused by relentless casualties and those strict wealth restrictions that left fewer families able to breed new soldiers. Section 8. Daily life beyond the blood. Breakfast? Oh, that was the infamous black broth, a concoction of pork stock, blood, salt, and vinegar. Visitors famously joked it was only tasty after you'd lost the ability to taste anything else. Men lived in those communal barracks until they were 30. Visiting your own wife required sneaking out under the cover of darkness. This system certainly produced children, yes, but it also fostered a group cohesion that soldiers still dream about today. Religion also mattered deeply. Festivals punctuated the Spartan year, each often with a distinct military twist. The Carnea, for instance, was a religious festival that literally forced armies to stand down for 9 days. Generals would pray while their enemies marched unhindered. Spartans were deeply superstitious, blaming earthquakes, eclipses, and even battlefield losses on their failure to meticulously keep ritual. Their gods demanded respect, and their warriors believed that divine favor was as crucial as their shields. Section 9. Why the machine broke. The real miracle isn't just that Sparta existed, but that it lasted as long as it did. By the 4th century BC, the citizen pool had plummeted to below 1,000. Too few babies passed inspection, too many wars winnowed down the fathers, and the system was slowly eating itself. Conquered Helot numbers remained steady, but the fear of their inevitable rebellion grew exponentially as the power gap between them and their masters narrowed. Attempts to open citizenship, like allowing some perioikoi into the ranks, eroded the very equality that had held the system together for so long. Then, in 371 BC, the Thebans delivered a crushing blow to Sparta at Leuctra, forever changing the balance of power. They then freed Messenia, stripping Sparta of its land and its crucial labor force. With their economic backbone shattered, Sparta slowly devolved. It eventually became little more than a morbid tourist attraction for Romans who came to watch boys whip each other for sport. The Agoge, once the factory of warriors, survived merely as a carnival act, a shadow of its brutal, effective past. Section 10. Legacy. Still, the idea of Sparta echoes through history. Discipline, sacrifice, unity. Modern militaries name bases after Leonidas. Gyms sell Spartan races to test endurance. We romanticize these men who chose duty over comfort, even if their utopia ran on slave labor and infanticide. Perhaps the true lesson is simpler. Any society that trades flexibility for fanaticism, that sacrifices humanity for an ironclad ideal, might win a few short battles, but it ultimately loses the long war against enemies, against demographics, and most inevitably, against time itself. If this real story flips what you thought you knew about Sparta, don't just sit there. Hit that subscribe button. I drop history without mercy for myths every single week. Section 11. Quick myth check. Did they fight in leather speedos? Absolutely not. They wore bronze cuirasses and greaves, practical armor for brutal combat. Did they shout, "This is Sparta," before delivering epic kicks? Nope. Historical records suggest a silent, almost respectful advance toward the enemy until the very last mile. And did they all have six-pack abs? Try wiry, scarred, and sun-leathered. Function over form, always. Section 12. Could it work today? Imagine a country where childcare is entirely communal, where personal wealth is literally impossible to accumulate, and where every teenager can field strip a rifle before they even pass algebra. Modern eyes, of course, see a nightmare scenario. Spartan eyes, however, saw the only path to survival. Their world answered the chilling question, how much freedom would you trade for security? With an unequivocal, all of it. Conclusion. Sparta's genius was in perfectly turning an entire society into a boot camp. Its profound tragedy was in forgetting that camps end, and societies, to endure, must also grow and adapt. Next time someone glorifies the 300, remember the iron bars, the stolen food, and the boys who never truly saw home again after age 7. History isn't a movie set. It's the sum of the brutal, heartbreaking, and often awe-inspiring choices real humans made when they genuinely believed the ends justified every single means. So, drop a comment below. Which part of Spartan life would you refuse first? The infamous black soup, the communal kids, or that chilling midnight knife work? Like the video if you want more history stripped of its glossy myths, and I'll see you at the next battle against misinformation.